When should you start drafting fantasy football quarterbacks in 2023? It's time to break it down right here and right now as we look at rounds 3 and 4 of our early fantasy football mock draft for Locked On Fantasy Football.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about fantasy football and the NFL for SportingNews.com. Big day coming night, actually. The schedule release will be here, so we'll have all the dates and times for all the games. We know the opponents and the matchups, but it'll be good to know all the games. We know some of them, some primetime affairs, international games, holiday affairs. We know about those games, but we'll get the whole schedule to help us navigate through fantasy football, project what kind of success we can have with particular teams based on their schedule, what games may not have relevance at the end of the season for fantasy football. So we'll break that down for you, a schedule reaction for you on Friday's show. Here we got to continue looking at our mock draft. We went through rounds 1 and 2. Now we got to look at rounds 3 and 4, giving you a snapshot of the most important picks that form the core of your starting lineup and your roster overall. So we'll look at those picks and build on what these teams did in rounds 1 and 2. If you missed those are up on the archives. Subscribe and follow for free wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube here on Locked On Fantasy Football. A special shout out to the everydayers. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. And, of course, we're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team, your fantasy team, every day. All right, let's go in and look at what we have here as we examine our next round of picks here. We'll go 8 picks at a time here to get us through picks 25 through 48 overall. A team that we started out with was Christian McCaffrey. They went number 1 overall. They got Mark Andrews at tight end. Cooper Kupp falls here into the 3rd round. Now, Kupp could be going a little bit higher. We'll see if he can return to form, but he's got some major injuries now in his past. Remember, he had the knee before last year, shut him down early, so it's a real concern. Matthew Stafford fading a little bit as well, so that's also something we're worried about. Kupp has been unstoppable. He's had a great run when healthy of late, but it's just been hard to stay on the field, and he's on the other side of 30 now. I think you can still draft him this high in the 3rd round because he's got the upside. They don't really have much else still in that passing game with the Rams. So I do like it that he's the alpha, but there's some other guys with upside. I mean, look at the receivers that we liked right before him, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Garrett Wilson, definitely young receivers on the rise that have key roles that can dominate with pretty good quarterback situations there. So I think there's a reason to drop Kupp this low and separate him from Jefferson. And I think it's about right. I mean, some places are going to have him higher, but you look at the guys that are higher. I mean, Jefferson, Chase, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, these are all legitimate receivers. And then you get those upside guys. Devontae Adams and CeeDee Lamb, I think you're going to make an argument among the veterans. Those two and A.J. Brown, Cooper Kupp belongs. But again, we just went more in this mock draft of the upside of Wilson and St. Brown over Kupp. So this is a pretty good value pick. He could definitely rebound nicely here. So something to watch out for. So team 1, McCaffrey, Andrews, Kupp, a pretty good start there. We continue working our way down on round 3 with the team that picked 2nd overall to start. And they took Justin Jefferson first. Then they went back to Najee Harris. So they wanted to get a running back they could trust. They would get high volume. Harris, I think, will go a little bit earlier than expected because running backs are in short supply that do feature status here. So keep that in mind with him. And here, Jalen Waddle's a good value. But I saw Waddle put up some big numbers last year, but he's still clearly the number 2 behind Tyreek Hill. And a lot of short passes are going to come his way. But I do like the fact that he's elite number 2 right now. Again, some of those guys with upside are a little bit higher. He's not a clear number 1 like those other guys are that we're looking at early. So that kind of separates him from that first group all the way through Kupp here. So it makes sense if you have Jefferson to have Waddle as your number 2. that's really strong here, especially getting Harris in between. So I do like the way it played out for team number 2. All right, team number 3 comes up, but they had Austin Eckler and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's how they did it in the first 2 picks. So Eckler, really good spot here. Again, still dominating the Chargers backfield. St. Brown, the clear number 1 with Jameson Williams. There's on a suspension early. Devonta Smith is a good compliment. Again, he was kind of the number 1 with A.J. Brown last year. So a lot of Waddle versus Hill and Devonta Smith versus Brown. I think you'll get some even production, but there's a little bit of a separation there that Hill and Brown are the alphas. And these guys took advantage of that to put up some numbers, but that's what puts them a little bit behind. But I still love that here when you have Devonta Smith and Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know they're going to get the ball a lot and be in favorable spots to produce. So I like that as the basis of your receiving core after you get a top running back in Eckler. So same philosophy should be going to our next team with Jonathan Taylor. So we had 3 running backs and Jefferson go. So John Taylor, they went for the upside of Garrett Wilson in round 2. That makes a lot of sense with Aaron Rodgers, a clear number 1 there. How about going back to the Ohio State? Well, maybe this team likes the Buckeyes a little bit, although they did get a Wisconsin running back in the first one. But Chris Olave, another upside guy that you look at. So you get the fundamental feature back in Taylor. That's a philosophy here, right, as well. I mean, you look at having a guy like McCaffrey, Eckler, Taylor, where they're going to dominate the touches. You can come back here and wait a little bit and feel like RB2 can be by committee even if you want to go in that direction and load up on receiver and really get the receiving upside here. So it does give you a little bit of advantage early if you get that bell cow back, the feature one that's going to get 25 touches, probably a game that you can go back, look at wide receiver for a while, or tight end, the best tight end available if that's the case, or even quarterback before you come back here to looking at your RB2. All right, the next team that's picking is team number 5. They would with Jamar Chase and Ramondre Stevenson. They got upgraded a little bit with Chase being the clear number 1. They need to get their backfield a little bit sorted out. Stevenson is a good pick there in round 2 based on the things that develop in the Patriots office season. Kenneth Walker is the pick here. A little bit of trepidation. This has probably slipped Walker deep into this group here behind Etienne and Stevenson and Harris. If there was no Zach Charbonnet, I think you would see Walker go higher. But now if you pretty much draft Walker, you have to invest pretty highly in getting Charbonnet here to lock up your handcuff here. So something to look at for sure. But I think going wide receiver first may prompt to go 2 backs, and that's you're going to see that develop a lot in these drafts. Now, this is about the time I would pull the trigger on a quarterback. I don't like quarterbacks in the second round. I like them in the mid-third round, and you got to weigh the tiers here at certain positions. This team has Bijan Robinson and Travis Etienne, so they've got the running backs. Wide receivers, you get into that tough spot here, not showing exactly what you're looking for here. I mean, you can consider T. Higgins, DK Metcalf, some of these receivers that are, again, sharing in certain situations. You could go for a lesser offense and Amari Cooper or Deebo Samuel, a little bit of an injury risk. So this is where you can say, okay, look, there's all these other players. I think I'm confident that I can find a decent wide receiver 1 later, and this is the only opportunity I'm going to have to do this. So Patrick Mahomes goes here to this team. So Robinson, Etienne closing up the backfield. Mahomes, a consistent source of production that you feel great about here at quarterback. So that's where you can go as well. The next team is going to do a bit of a copycat. They did draft their as team number 7, Josh Jacobs and A.J. Brown. So in diversifying, you have a guy that has high volume in Jacobs, a pretty strong number 1 in Brown. There's no tight end that makes sense here. So Josh Allen is definitely the play here. So something to look at. Yeah, it doesn't go crazy to go Josh Allen this early. So keep that in mind. Mahomes, Allen, and one more guy have separated themselves a little bit with their production that they can all go in round 3, depending on how the first 2 rounds play out and what the tier drop-offs here are with those moves. So very interesting that you see that. And team number 8 in round 3, they've gone with the combination of Tyreek Hill and Breece Hall. So 2 high upside players, of course, Hall coming back from the injury. So now you're seeing those 2 quarterbacks go off the board. I think you want to shore up the number 2 backs before the guys that are getting the key touches. There's going to be a drop-off here pretty soon to get these committee backs that you have questions about, either injury-wise or their usage. So Aaron Jones, it's not the juiciest pick, but you know Aaron Jones is going to be a big part of what the Packers do, playing off of Jordan Love in the running game. So they want to jump on Aaron Jones here. Brees Hall also a little bit of shaky with the injury, so Aaron Jones is a good way to approach it here for team number 8. Now, interesting running backs that weren't taken before then. We'll look at that in the next 8 picks as we go down from team number 9 and back up here. So we'll go 9 through 12 and 12 through 9 here to look at the rounds 3 and 4 of our early mock draft here for Locked On Fantasy Football. All right, we will continue that, and a lot of good names to come, including where our next quarterback will go, and quarterbacks, plural, will be off the board. I do have to tell you that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Built. Looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, and you need to try the best tasting protein bar ever. At Built, you got to try these. If you're like me and you don't want to make healthier snack choices without compromising taste, then I've got just the thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they do. You won't think they're good for you. You got to try all of them. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate, 100% real dark chocolate. That's right. And they come in unbelievable flavors. Yeah, churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, desserty flavors that are delicious. And I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars actually taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. What's even better is that they're healthy for you. Only 130 calories, 4 grams sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein packed in most Built Bars. So good stuff for you. Now you don't need to wait to get a box. For years, we've been telling you to go to order your Built Bars at Built.com, and that's what we've been talking about. But now you get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you can still get your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. You can walk up to the pharmacy section, and there you can find a box of Built Bars that have 4 bars in them, cookies and cream bar, double chocolate, and a coconut puff are all available there for you, so you can do that. If you need a little bit more than that, you can go to Sam's Club and grab a 13-bar box with hit flavors, including brownie batter puff, churro puff. You can thank me later. So good stuff all around. Get your Built Bars now, the most delicious protein bar ever, and puffs, and you can get them not only at Built.com, but as we mentioned, at your local Walmart and Sam's Club stores. All right, it is time to continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We're breaking down rounds 3 and 4 of our early mock draft. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Everydayers, shout out to you. Tomorrow on the show, again, we'll break down our reaction to the 2023 NFL schedule release that's happening tonight, Thursday. So we'll know all the dates and times for all the games this season and try to figure it out fantasy-wise, have something to work with, our tableau, so to speak, for our paintbrush and paints that we're going to use with our fantasy football players this season. All right, speaking of fantasy football and our players that we want this season, let's finish up our third round of the mock draft here. So this next team number 9, had Stephon Diggs and Derrick Henry. So good spot here, but Derrick Henry a little bit volatile with his injury and wear and tear. So maybe taking a shot at another volatile back seems shaky, but this is a really good value for Dalvin Cook. Now, there's a lot of rumblings. Cook was about to be traded, but he wasn't. Then you have Alexander Madison still behind him. They had a little bit more depth in the draft with Dwayne McBride. What are they going to do here with Dalvin Cook? We're not sure, but right now he's still in Minnesota, which is a sign that he's going to be there. And Cook is still the lead back. He's pretty consistent as an RB2 here for you. He's not living up to the RB1 expectations anymore. With the touchdowns don't come as much, and they just are more of a passing team. But I think getting him here is a good value near the bottom of round number 3. The next team had a really exciting start here with Nick Chubb and CeeDee Lamb, 2 ascending younger veterans that have been good and reliable, that you know what you're going to get from Chubb and Lamb. Well, they need to go get another one. TJ Hawkinson. Yep, TJ Hawkinson is your third tight end that you target. Yeah, he's displaced his buddy George Kittle from Iowa. So Hawkinson just in a great spot. He's really the number 2 target, most reliable for Kirk Cousins behind Jefferson, much like Travis Kelce's the go-to guy for Patrick Mahomes. Mark Andrews is one of the top targets for Lamar Jackson. Really, you can argue that those are the top guys. You need to look at the guy that's number 2 and high number 2, and that's Hawkinson. So it makes a lot of sense there for the target. So Chubb, Lamb, and Hawkinson, pretty solid picks here for team number 10 that you know are going to get some production. Now, a little bit of volatility for this next team 11. They got Saquon Barkley. Hopefully things will work out there. A pretty good value pick then if that's the case. Devontae Adams as well on the turn coming back in round 2. Now on the way down, I think T. Higgins is a good target here. He's going to be playing for that contract to stay with Joe Burrow, so something to look at for sure to motivate him with Jamar Chase. But again, he's a clear number 2 here. The numbers slid him down a little bit last year. He had a big year the year before, the Joe Burrow Super Bowl breakout year. So I think he tapers out as a pretty high-end wide receiver too. All right, let's go to the next pick. And quarterbacks, I mean, it's not a copycat fantasy football league, but Mahomes and Allen are off the board. This team has already gone in a different direction of the draft. Keep that in mind. Sometimes your direction is set up by how you go early. Team 12 went to Travis Kelce early, so you know they were already going for a little bit of luxury. We're fortunate to get Tony Pollard on the turn here, so upside running back one that you can look at. So now maybe not forcing on the receivers, realizing that there's a tier drop off at quarterback a little bit to the non-runners. Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts are there. So you jump on Hurts as you're going to be your only chance. You're at the bottom here, and you know you're going to have that next pick to address wide receiver as well. So really good spot at the turn. Turns are excellent times to go after quarterbacks here because, again, you know you're going to have that backup pick to go after a different position. So Travis Kelce and Pollard and Hurts, you do that, and then you come back and look at the next round, round 4, coming back up. DK Metcalf makes a lot of sense here. We have our the receivers. You go with the number one in Seattle, really the co-number one. Tyler Lockett may slip a little bit. Jackson's been the Jigba in the mix, so really good spot here. So you get a little bit of everything. This is the diverse portfolio type of drafting here. Once you go in the tight end direction, you might as well pepper yourself with the top targets across, really kind of spread the wealth around. So coming back up for Team 12, doubles up Hurts and Metcalf. Now, the team before just has Saquon Barkley, Devontae Adams, took T. Higgins. They're going to jump on Jahmyr Gibbs. They need some running back help again. Barkley, a little bit questionable, but Gibbs has some RB1 upside as an RB2 at this spot. So good pick there. Now we're starting that question mark running back spot, but this team with Chubb, Lamb, and Hawkinson really needs to get an option here. The drop-off has begun at quarterback. They already got their tight end, so it would make sense to go after Miles Sanders. So team number 10, at least they know they're going to get the volume from the Panthers lead back here coming over from the Eagles. And then you look coming back up, Amari Cooper. Yeah, Amari Cooper maybe forgotten a little bit, but he's got Deshaun Watson. He's got a little bit of competition. I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell. Now the rookie Cedric Tillman are almost kind of the same type of receiver here. Bell's a little bit more inside possession. Those guys are a little bit more speedy, but have some size. Cooper's that reliable guy. We saw him in a lot of games. There was a few games in which he disappeared, but that was with Jacoby Brissett. I think with a full season of Watson here, he's going to be locked and loaded here. Cooper's just been pretty reliable in most stops here, the Cowboys, Raiders as well. So he's one of those reliable guys. He's not going to make you feel juicy about it, but as a wide receiver 2 behind Stephon Diggs for this team number 9, it's a really good pick there for sure. All right, we will get into our final 8 picks to close us out all the way through 48 overall as we look at our mock draft here following the 2023 NFL draft. So good stuff all around that we're breaking down for you. And again, we'll have the schedule release breakdown for you tomorrow. Everydayers, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today and every day. Make sure you're checking out great shows here all across the network. Locked On NFL Scouting, Locked On NFL Draft. Good shows there to give you insight on the prospects that were just drafted, the prospects that are yet to come. Excitement there for sure. Then check out all our shows across the Locked On NFL team here to check out the schedule breakdown. So looking forward to looking at those here. Schedule breakdowns for all the teams in the league and see how they fared, what we need to worry about, what's going to help them in reality and fantasy. So a lot of good stuff here coming on a Friday across the Locked On Network. It is time to close the show and look at the last 8 picks of my round 1 through 4 mock draft here. So we'll go through pick 48. So we're up now to team number 8. And as they work this draft, they've added Tyreek Hill and Breece Hall and Aaron Jones. It's a half-point PPR. We're snaking back up here. So that's how it looks like with this team. And I think you would say go back to wide receiver where you're not going to reach your quarterback. Deebo Samuel's a pretty good value. 4th-round pick. Yeah, that's how he's kind of being ranked right now. The durability issues are real. There's a little bit of concern with the quarterback as well, not knowing exactly who's going to be the guy here with all the injuries and navigating through that in San Francisco. But Deebo Samuel is a really good value, especially when you have a Tyreek Hill, put him as a wide receiver 2. That's really good because we know where Samuel finished a couple of years ago as a wide receiver 1. Last year didn't play out as well with the numbers. He couldn't stay on the field. He didn't have that running upside. That was the question, right? And it definitely went away when Christian McCaffrey was in the mix and Samuel was a little bit banged up. So Now, Samuel is more restorative as a wide receiver, and that puts him in the wide receiver 2 conversation pretty solidly here in round 4. Up next is a team that has Josh Jacobs, A.J. Brown, and Josh Allen. So now they have to look at another option here, and really you look at the pick, and it's Dameon Pierce. Now, this is a bit flying under the radar. It's a pretty good zone blocking run system. They didn't only add Devin Singletary. They didn't really look to go in a different direction from Pierce. So that was good for him. He had a very productive year. I think it's one of the things that worked last year as a very low drafted rookie here. So he was a revelation last year for much of it until he slowed down and had to be shut down later in the season. But Pierce was very valuable as at least an RB2, and I think that's what we're going to get from him this year in a better Texans offense overall, quite frankly. So he could definitely finish well above this. But get Josh Jacobs, you can come back. Pierce is a strong 2, especially when you've addressed quarterback and wide receiver 1 with Josh Allen and A.J. Brown with the previous 2 picks. Are the next team we told you that's why they went for Mahomes, because there was some good value at running back and wide receiver based on the tiers here. And they had Bijan Robinson, Travis Etienne going with run back. They were young at the first 2 picks. So with team number 6, they went with Mahomes to break the seal on the quarterback in the right spot. And now DJ Moore. So seeing what he can do. I know it's a low volume passing game for Chicago, but they can change things with DJ Moore in the mix. So Moore, I think some people are going to drop him too much, but again, he didn't play with real quarterbacks in Carolina. At least Justin Fields has some chemistry. He's going to push the ball downfield to him. So Moore's another wide receiver 2 with a bullet that can go up. Now, next team is Jamar Chase, team number 5, drafted him first from Andre Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, half-point PPR. You go with Keenan Allen. Hopefully he'll stay healthy. You'll have to get some depth at receiver there, but having Chase can help you offset a little bit and go after wide receiver 2 and 3 depth here pretty well here for Allen. So Keenan Allen is a pick here. Stevenson Walker with Chase. Allen makes sense here. And again, hopefully he stays healthy because I think he'll still have a key part in what they do here with Justin Herbert rolling over here. And I think the offensive Kellen Moore is definitely going to help Allen's production should he stay on the field. All right, team number 4 is Jonathan Taylor. And then they had the Ohio State second-year duo of Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Now they can go after Cam Akers. It was a pretty good offseason for Cam Akers. Not too much that happened behind him there in the draft. They do like some of the upside they have with Kyron Williams and rookie in the mix. So it's something to worry about with Zach Evans. But when you look overall, I think Akers is still holding down the job here. Evans is more of a power receiving hybrid swing back here. So something to look at. But Akers in really good shape to hold up there as your lead back. So again, it's a pretty good value here, well in the 4th round as an RB2. DeAndre Hopkins hasn't been traded. Now this next team, looking at them, they have Austin Eckler. So again, they can wait on that running back 2 if they want because of Eckler's volume here. So I think they're going to do that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devonta Smith. How about DeAndre Hopkins as a wide receiver 3? Yeah, that's a good spot here. Look, it's tough between him and Marquise Brown, but Hopkins is still in Arizona. As long as he's there and healthy, he's going to produce for Kyler Murray. So really looking at that as the team number 3's strategy here when you get Eckler. Team number 2 went Justin Jefferson early, so they got to go back to the running back well, you'd think, with Najee Harris in round 2 and Jalen Waddle in round 3. J.K. Dobbins, I think this has been underrated as well. There's not a lot behind him with Gus Edwards and Justice Hill. They could try to push forward in this backfield, but really Dobbins, if he stays healthy, he's in a great spot here. The running game looks pretty solid here with the offensive line upgrade from last year. Lamar Jackson back. Dobbins can also catch passes, so watch out for him being a good value here as an RB2 at the end of round 4. And then finally, the next team, we saw them diversify. They went running back, Christian McCaffrey in first round as number 1 overall. Team 1 then went with Mark Andrews and Cooper Kupp. So now you can go after quarterback. It makes a lot of sense. So Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is the next guy I would take after Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts because you get that slight running ability from Mahomes, but big running ability from Allen and Hurts. Burrow is going to have to do it all through the pocket, but really good spot here to take Joe Burrow at the end of round 4 coming back up. So good to know where you're drafting and know what time of makeup your team's going to have and just play in that and know where the values are later to go after it and know when you should go aggressive after a player. And again, this team at the top has a turn so they can go in round 5 to look at the best running back or wide receiver available and really pad the team there. So it's getting imperative to have a reliable quarterback that can separate you a little bit, but you have to hit them at the right time or find that sleeper that has some upside later. So some things to definitely think about there. But And these guys are pretty safe. Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, and Burrow, given their accolades and how successful their teams are going to be. So there you have it. There's a breakdown now of your rounds 3 and 4 of the early mock draft here in May on Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks again for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first one every day. Tomorrow we'll break down the NFL schedule release for you from a fantasy football perspective. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll check you out with a new schedule in hand for 2023.